If you love the monkey as much as I love the monkey, you're going to want to stick around because I'm going to tell you how many golden bananas you're going to need to complete the SH Monster Arts Kong and get his beast glove.
Monkey, 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 and more. It's Steven's Monkey Reviews.
Hey there, collectors, it's Steven here, and welcome to the first entry into my How Bandai Failed the Monsterverse video series, and this one's going to be talking about the cost of Kong. We're going to be talking about all of the DLC accessories and how much it's going to cost to make your SH Monster Arts Godzilla Kong from Godzilla Kong The New Empire 2024, whatever the title is. How much it's going to cost to actually get the beast glove and all of the bells and whistles for this guy. Now, it's a long title. There's going to be more videos than just this one, but today we're going to be centering right here on this big ape dude, okay? That's going to be it. Now, I do want to put this out there, obviously, to begin with. Criticizing does not mean hating. Criticizing does not mean disliking. Criticizing is that criticism, okay? All right, so now that is out of the way. Folks, let's talk about what the ground terms are here, and let's talk about terminology. So DLC, I used that at the beginning, and that's something that's kind of been thrown around. So what DLC is basically in this mindset is basically like BAF. What is that? Well, DLC stands for downloadable content. BAF stands for Build-A-Figure. What that means is you take less desirable figures that are going to be released, and then you add parts to them that you can put together to make something that is a bit more desirable. So you get a complete additional figure that builds into the cost of your whole budget, and you increase sales. So I would say that DLC really isn't an apt term for what we have going on here with Tamashii Nations. I would say that, Build-A-Figure is a bit more, but regardless, it doesn't matter. So far we do have what Tamashii Nations is doing, the practice of selling accessories with other figures, and their stuff's getting parsed out. Some are upset, some are not. It's collector friendly, but at the same time it's not. But what exactly does this mean? How do we parse this out? Where do we get down to the brass tacks of things? Well, it is helpful in some cases, and in other cases it's not. But what are some examples that we have here? Well, here we do have two, I think, really good examples of this. Some say it's not so good in Gohan's place. Actually, Luffy too. But I think this is a good example of showing what that DLC idea looks like. So for Gohan, for an example, we do have the idea of price. First and foremost, the Dragon Ball Superhero Ultimate Gohan cost $35 at US retail. Pretty good. I actually bought a couple of them, which hammers home the idea. So with that, you're going to have a mix of figures with the superhero release lineup. You're going to have the entry-level figures for collectors, the real affordable ones, where you're going to have your Gohan, Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, all cheap, easy, lots of folks are going to buy them, plenty of times reissued, widely available, not a problem. Then you're going to have the more risky releases like your Gamma 1, Gamma 2, Orange Piccolo, Broly, Pan, so forth. They're not guaranteed sales. Folks are a little worried about them. Are they characters that I want? But how about we go ahead and slip in the Super Saiyan head, the cape, the mantelpiece, the Kamehameha, the windy hair. Now, those figures seem a little bit more enticing for those who are the hardcore collector who are kind of on the fence, do I want it, do I not? Where you have the sort of maybe more so casual collector who doesn't want to catch them all, where they're okay sitting out because they have a Gohan that they bought that was like $35, maybe 36 or so with tax, and he's got all the hands, he's got enough faceplates, they're fine. But then you're going to have something like Gohan Beast come along where, hey, that's a pretty much complete figure, and he's going to have a DLC part for Ultimate Gohan, and he's going to even add it even more. So now you're going to have even more complete figures, and everything kind of sort of works out in its own way. Now, you are going to have some duds, and folks are going to miss out on some accessories, which does bring into an issue of some of the releases being premium Bandai. One production run done, so if you miss the accessory, you're going to have to get it on the aftermarket. That does create a problem, but that's how it's used here. Now, for Luffy, for One Piece, now, the biggest issue is going to be price, because pretty much every release that has come out for the renewed SH Figure Arts One Piece releases, they come with an accessory for Luffy, but now apparently they're doing them for Gear 5 Luffy as well. Now, since every character pretty much is not a retread of an older release, they're not just like repainting an older release and putting it on the market, they're basically renewing everything, but every single release does come with an accessory for your initial investment of a $35 Luffy figure, whether or not it's going to be the pre-time skip, raid, they've got a new one coming out, I forget the name of it, he's dressed in all red, he's $35 I think too, and all of those accessories are interchangeable between each one of the Luffys, so you can have the meat and the meat eating face and the bugging out eye face from those two figures swapped real nice, real good. Now, they all exist and they all are swappable. So every new One Piece figure that you get, you can use them for any Luffy. And what's even cool is not only are they accessories for Luffy, but if you don't feel like you want to get them all, like let's say you're not a fan of Nami, or let's say they do get to Boa Hancock and you don't want those figures, a lot of the accessories that they're including are more so accompaniments to those characters. Like let's say with, Boa Hancock, maybe they're doing like a drooling face because Luffy's, looking at something. That's more so an accessory that goes along with that character, and it blends in with Luffy. I hope that makes sense. So they exist, but they're fine to miss out on, really, because they have synergy with that character. So you do have pros and you have cons for this dynamic of releases. You have the pros, which you do have the main characters, which are affordable and they're easy to pick up, but the real big con is you're going to have the diehards, we're pretty much going to be the only ones that are going to be getting a lot of the limited stuff, and once the limited parts and the limited figures are done, then that's all that's on the market, and if you decide later you want to get them, well, then you're kind of screwed. But the big point about this is, like let's say for Gohan, you have the normal ultimate, you have the Super Saiyan head option part, you do have the nerdy Gohan head part, you do have the windswept hair, then you have the Beast, okay, you have at least 5, then you have the alternate third-party head sculpts. Okay, so you can basically kind of come up with a whole bunch of different excuses if you would like here. Yeah, so I mean, at least you can have 8 Ultimate Gohans on your shelf with different display options. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge for yours truly. So, with that being said, I want you to keep those points in mind when we're talking about Kong, because I'm gonna guess that you're gonna see Kong really doesn't fall in line with that DLC mindset, because I am going to talk about that as well. But right now we're going to switch on over to how the GXK, the Kong 2024, I'm going to sort of alternate between them just because of thinking on the spot and making sure that I have all my terminology here correct. Kong really did miss the mark as a release in whole, right? So how did it miss it? Well, in a few big ways here, okay? So realistically speaking, it was a poor attempt at a repaint. The customer basically was neglected, and it's an unofficial, just a myriad of canned responses. And of course, this is all going to be my opinion. I don't have any sort of magistrate or judge or anything to say that you can have action figure neglect or customer neglect, but that's just where I'm coming from here and my own thoughts based on actions that I've seen here on the market and what we have. So where do we have the Kong coming from to begin with? Well, first and foremost, the original sculpt was made during the production period of Godzilla vs. Kong, so back in 21. But before that, obviously, because we pretty much all should know, it's implied, right, that you make product in the time when something is being developed, okay? So that inherently isn't an issue. So Shinzen, the one who sculpted the Kong sculpt, had access to the skeleton that they were using for Kong. Off of that, he made the musculature, made the fur, so on and so forth, and that's how we got Kong. Now, that was used in the initial promotional material back for the 2021 Kong. Not really a problem there, right? Okay, thumbs up. Now, Shinzen also made mention that he didn't see the movie. which is fine. Not a problem at the time. Now, 3 years later, there was no change to the sculpt. They didn't reuse the chest part with the slash marks for Kong, which that's going to tie into another part I'm going to talk about. Nothing changed. There was no change to the sculpt whatsoever. And as we're going to see here in a little bit, this is not a matter of this is a pro Haya video, because it's not. I need to get ahead of that now. There's another company, a contemporary basically, that's demonstrated that it is very much so possible, even in a shorter time frame, to do better for the customer and deliver on the goods. So we are still reusing inaccurate stuff years later when not appropriate. Now, remember when I talked about the chest? There was a removal of accessories. Well, it's the same as the original 2020. So the event exclusive color release of Kong, the one that was for SDCC, it did come with some more accessories, most notably a growling, gritting teeth head face, different hands, and it did come with the axe explosion part, right? Now, we're way past the spoiler embargo territory, right? At the end of the movie, when, Zuko kind of slams the axe down, we do have that axe explosion, right? That would be a cool accessory to add in here. Maybe they could have added that in actually with Zuko instead. I'll maybe, bend the knee there, okay? But nevertheless, the hands, the gritting teeth face, that all could have been used here. One of the things that's been sort of spread in the community, and I'm not sure where this came from, is an idea that Tamashii Nations Bandai, they don't reuse parts for any sort of exclusive release, and that is not true at all. Like, if they repaint it, if they repurpose it, as long as it is a new item, as long as it is something that is new and it is not a one-to-one reissue, unless it is for a special campaign like they're doing right now for some Figuart stuff, they're free to reuse anything that they want. So it's not really an issue unless there's something that licensing says that they can't do. So it's not a problem if they wanted to repaint the chest, because this is the event exclusive one here. I actually lost my my GXK one. I don't know where it's at. He's in one of my ADHD piles. But anyway, yeah, so it's not really a problem if they were to repaint this or use the other hands. And they've demonstrated that with other lines, and I will come back to that idea again here in a little bit. Now, there is another idea that's come about for this is only for those who missed out on the original release, which I did talk about that back in my review of the two figures, the other one being Godzilla. But I do want to put in this little caveat here. You have to keep this in mind whenever you're listening to media, you're reading it, so on. When the author of something is putting something out, there is the worldview and the lens from which they are publishing something. And also, things have to be edited and trimmed for time. I know this video is going to be long, but please keep that in mind. Like, my target audience is basically going to be the United States collector, or at least the English-speaking collector. Now, if you're in Brazil, which I do know that I'm particularly thinking of one of my viewers who's very active in all aspects of where STR is at. He does live in Brazil. And when I say, something's available on BBTS, you do have Target available. Okay, so he can't do those things, right? But the thing is, from my end, I don't expect him to. I don't expect him to be able to go to those areas. Now, am I saying that he shouldn't have access to those? No, I'm not. What I am saying is that the argument of that the GXK Kong should be available because there's no availability of anything else. That argument is what I'm targeting, and I'm sort of providing context for, because even during, Black Friday, Christmas holiday sales, you can find the event exclusive one still readily available, ships internationally to all territories pretty much. Amazon had it for $70. I saw through Amazon Japan, you could still get it for approximately that much in yen. I know a couple of stores that ship internationally. Even the GVK one, still available. Yep. So where the supply issue is at, I don't know where it is. Even looking internationally, and even secondhand sites in Japan, you can get the GXK one for 5,000 yen. Secondhand sites, new, but just pre-owned from somebody else. So now with that, So there are other options, including another one that I'm going to talk about. Now, I want to go back to the idea of costs, right? Gohan and Luffy, who I have up here, not particularly either of these because these include the DLC parts. Luffy and Gohan are going to be $35. You can even take a look at the Naruto, however you want to pronounce them. Some of the other releases that they have that follow sort of that DLC model, they're going to be about $35. Kong's $75. And there's no real reason to buy more than one Kong. But it's a repaint of the original Kong. But if it's a repaint of the original Kong, and you're saying that it's meant to it's meant to only be for those who missed out on the original release, and it's not meant to be for those who bought the original, that actions speak louder than words. For those who missed out, no. They're intending for it to be mutually exclusive, where in the GVK Kong is the GVK Kong. The GXK Kong is the GXK Kong. That is the reason why that they have those separated for promotional purposes. That is the reason why they have them at different price points, and that is the reason why they have it very clearly labeled that different accessories are for those specific releases. There's new price, there's new promo pictures. Now, you can definitely say that parts can be used between them, no problem, just like the Luffy's here. It's unofficial, but you can swap. But Bandai is pushing that they're two separate products. That's in the promotional material. That's in the advertising and so forth. And you cannot have it both ways. It cannot be a matter of, well, they're sort of interchangeable. It's either a matter of they're interchangeable releases and they're one-to-one just with a new coat of paint, which that causes a whole other categorization issue when it comes to cataloging your releases and what's considered what in collector communities, which that does matter to a lot of people, or these are objectively two different releases and we have to say the GXK Kong is a repaint of what we have already acknowledged is an inaccurate Godzilla versus Kong Monsterverse Kong. Now, with all of that being said, we're kind of at a joined point where we sort of enter one of the stages of grief where we have to accept where we're not getting a new sculpt for the Kong 2024, where we do have an updated design for him, albeit very small, moving forward in the Monsterverse, and where we sort of have it stamped where Tamashii Nations did not have an accurate sculpt for Kong going into Godzilla vs. Kong, which we already talked about whether or not, that's fine, acceptable, so forth, which really sort of does warrant its own little sort of sidebar mini discussion, which, they could have in their own way gone the Godzilla Evolved route. What does that mean? Well, you have the two repaints to kind of, get the product out the door to meet any implied contractual requirements or to recoup any immediate money right out the gate. And then you do your own sort of new sculpt for the Beast Glove Kong, which still wouldn't have been great. You do one whole big deluxe set. We'll come right back to that idea, but nevertheless, they didn't do that. What would have been awesome as well is across different brands, different properties, they're doing accessory sets. Dragon Ball, they're doing accessory sets. One Piece, Naruto, Narudi, whatever you want to call it, they're doing accessory sets. We do also have different stage support sets, wrestling ring parts. They're getting some different options for support stands. So we have had accessory sets for the SH Monster Arts line in the past, so it's pretty disappointing that that may not have even been considered an option. Now, these are not $20 to $30 toys. Admittedly, they are toys first, collectibles second, as an employee of Bluefin had once put it on an anonymous image board. So this isn't something that we can just kind of throw our money at time and again for each of the different releases. Now, if there would have been like a $20 or $30 upgrade set, like maybe for a DX option, that would have been really cool. Now, something that has been argued against any sort of changes and sort of updates would very much so have been, Godzilla, Monsterverse, Kong, so forth isn't, I guess maybe as big of a license, but really, when you want to know the truth about it, a lot of folks were really upset about the head sculpt and Kong not looking accurate. Again, it's just a repaint of the Monsterverse Kong, the 2021 repainted. And if we were to just kind of bring in just a casual player here, we do have the SHF Trunks, the one with the new body style, the renewal. There was a bicep peg issue. They just changed that length a little bit, and he was good to go. The legendary Super Saiyan Goku Flame Effect, they just adjusted some of the paint applications at the factory, and they matched the chest with the rest of the body. Very minor changes made it to nearly be warranted a whole new purchase, and they couldn't invest that in Kong whatsoever. Now, they did make changes to the Mechagodzilla Decisive Battle set, where the head was pretty much changed, so that way you can swap out the head parts for the damaged eyes. And Space Godzilla did have an updated chest, so this way we could swap out for the crystals. But they didn't have it done here. So then this brings in the next implication. Kong will more than likely reappear in the Monsterverse at some point. Are we going to see this sculpt again in the next movie for the product lineup? And is Kong still going to have the Beast Glove? Obviously, that's going to be in the future. We don't have a crystal ball, right? Okay. But if they're gonna change the sculpt then, and include the Beast Glove then, why don't they just do it now? That being said, the third big part of this video, what actually is the cost of Kong? What is the cost of the Monsterverse, the Kong from the 2024 movie, Godzilla Kong, the New Empire? So with this practice moving forward, there are implications that this will happen again. I do want to make sure that you're aware as we're priming this subject, and there's an implication that we're going to have to grant Tamashii Nations a little bit of leeway and sort of bend the knee that, hey, you know what, this is going to be in a way okay. Like maybe we're going to have Mothra release at some point later, a redo of the King of the Monsters one, and she's going to have some sort of aura effect or maybe even a beam for Godzilla. Now, we are going to have highly popular repaints to help recoup the cost for money back. That's sort of a standard, and even though way back when the line began, Tamashii sort of dropped hints here and there in interviews where that wasn't the case. They were pricing their items so this way they wouldn't have to do that, but nevertheless, that's kind of where we are with the economy today. Now, that really does go into sort of like the SHF standard, along with making updates to product and figures. So that is something that is going to have to be sort of accepted as the new norm. However, that being said, if that is going to be the new norm, that is going to be accepted, what the consumer really has to do is really look elsewhere and see what is on the market, not only for the direct product that the consumer is looking to get, but also to see what other practices are there. Now, we're really mostly going to focus in here for what the consumer can get for right now, because you can get a lot more bang for your buck. One of the things, speaking of buck, that is the reason that so many are saying that things are okay, it's not really a big issue, here's why we're piecemealing things out, is that there's early source material and there's other similar, well, to say it, coping. And now that's the reason why things are inaccurate, and that's okay. Here's the issue. We have other companies that are really getting a really quick turnaround time for products where they're able to get the product announced maybe a little bit later, they're taking their time, or they're announced at the same time as Tamashii Nations, and they're much better in terms of accuracy to the source material, and they're priced much more affordably than Tamashii Nations. And I'm not just talking about action figures. And when it comes to accuracy, or even if they're priced in the same category in terms of what you can get for your money. I really hate to bring in the number one contemporary here when we're talking about kaiju and action figures, but if we are going to, I am going to have to bring Haya in as a comparison for cost. I understand that they're going to be, mainland China with their factories that are going to be right there for logistics and so forth, but if you're going to be looking at, let's say, Kong for an example, they're going to be able to do the normal Kong, which they did have a revision from announcement from when they had access to the Monsterverse license to getting a renewal out, which has only been about 2 years since they had a prototype cranked out or thereabouts. Their two Kongs are only going to be $50 at pop. We can sort of round and put the average out there, whereas a Tamashii Nations Kong is going to be probably about $70 if we were to average, and that's going to be if we include sales for the event exclusive. So there is a bit of a concern there when we really look at what we are truly getting down to, the cost of what we are looking at for the whole kit and caboodle for the SH Monster Arts Kong, and getting an accurate to what Tamashii Nations can provide, a New Empire Kong. So let's go ahead and assume that we are looking at a general cost for all of the Monsterverse cast that comes with the DLC parts for Kong, okay? This is what we've been building up to what we've really been talking about. This has all been layering on top of each other and where we're going to go here, okay? So we have Kong. Kong's baseline MSRP is going to be about $75. And the reason why I say MSRP is manufacturer suggested retail price. Manufacturer suggested retail price. That means this is what, in America, Bandai Namco Toys and Collectibles, Bandai Collect, is saying that this figure should sell for, because this is what it's worth. So even if there's a sale, if you find Kong for $50, we're disregarding that, because this is what Bandai is saying we, the collective we here, should be spending. So Kong is going to be about $75. If you look up Scar King, who is going to have the Beast Glove and extra hand parts, he's going to be, let's go ahead and say $100. Okay. Shimo, between $230 and $240. Shimo's going to come with, once again, the extra parts for Kong. Then we have the Zuko and Mothra set. That's going to be $100. Once again, more parts for Kong, and they're going to be $100. So if we have about $105, let's round for Scar King, we're going to say about $235 for Shimo. So that's going to be about $340 we're looking at so far. Then we add another $100 on for the Mothra and Zuko set. We're at $440. Once we add in Kong, that's another $75. We're approaching the area of $510 or thereabouts, okay? That's about what we're looking at, and that's only if we're rounding and not factoring in fully shipping and handling and tax. Okay, that's assuming we're going to go with getting all of the accessories for one Kong. Remember, Bandai is pushing DLC for Kong. What did we talk about to build up to this point? The intention of DLC for their action figures is so you can buy multiples of their figures and use the DLC interchangeably and have multiple display options. And the narrative that's being pushed by some is this is either meant to be, for those who may have missed, it's meant to be a replace. So whatever you're looking to do, all right, bust out your calculators, because we're going to go ahead and we're going to sit pretty at $510. we'll go ahead and split it. We'll just say 510, okay? So we're going to have to get another Kong because let's just assume we need a vanilla Kong to hold the axe. Great. Then we're going to go ahead and need another Kong. So this way he can just have the beast glove and or the axe. That's going to be another 75. We're at 585. Then we can go ahead and we can assume that we're going to need another Kong because he doesn't have the silver tooth throughout the entirety of the movie. That's going to be another $75. How much are we at now if we want to really experience the entirety of Kong through the appropriateness of what Tamashii Nations is doing with the DLC model for their figure across the different brands and the different... Do you get the point that is being made here? Do you get how frustrating this is? Do you get when we have an asinine business model that is used for other products that is being applied to what is intended to be a premium product line that is meant to be for collectors, that is not being executed in the way that it is intended when you have a competitor brand? When this video was drafted months ago, where the total cost would have been $216 if Haya did the same thing. Now you only have to buy 2 monkey figures from Haya. You only got to spend $100. Isn't that insane? That is nuts. So what do? Whatever you want. I made a whole video about this, and I'm going to go back to the original New Empire review that I did. It was a review. You can do whatever you want. You have fun collecting. That's the whole point of this hobby. And you have fun. There are opinion pieces that people made. There are topics that people discuss. It doesn't matter, man. Look, there's conversations for people online. That's all this is. This is a discussion. This is a thought piece. What this is meant to really do is just talk about something that some folks, it may matter to. Other folks, they say, I don't care. I make that in a day. It's just a drop in the bucket. I don't give two shits. So who cares? But come up with your own thoughts. Come up with your own feelings. All right. You got a 200 plus 250, 270. Who cares? You got me, this big old Irishman who's telling you, it doesn't matter, because if you're having fun, get several stories from folks, get several opinions, and you'll grow so much from learning about different perspectives and different thoughts. And that's really how you can shape your opinions on your hobby and how you can look at the world around you, just beyond this as well. And further, advocate for yourself, okay? Now, that doesn't mean that you just lie down and you take whatever's released, okay? So with you and the way you collect, you don't have to accept anything that is released. You don't have to like everything. You don't have to buy it. You know, when it comes down to it, it's your money. You do with it as you please. But at the same time, it doesn't have to be like a monkey flinging poo at each other, because keep in mind, you don't need to insult the people who work at the companies. It's a matter of going after the companies with criticism, not the individual, because there are some of those people who are active in the community, and sometimes things don't happen the way they intended, and it's not really their fault. And realistically speaking, you really want to be healthy with your hobbies. And that is what collecting is. And it's a very easy, slippery slope to get into a very toxic, bad mindset, which I'll talk about a little bit more as well. And you're not gonna have fun, okay? Trust. I've seen it way too many times. Come up with your own collecting philosophy. I have a mental health video that I need to do more with. All right. So what are my thoughts on this whole situation here? The meme, I'm built different. Okay. So when it comes to the different DLC parts, we're right here on the eve of Scar King's release. Well, he's already out technically, but everybody, more people getting it. I am going to get him and the rest of the figures because I'm a reviewer and I like doing this. This is my hobby. That's why I do spend the money, and that's why I post videos about it, and that's why I post my opinions. Now, privately, what I would do if this wasn't a factor whatsoever, I personally would just only do Haya. I like the SH Monster Arts line, but right now, I would only see that Haya is going to be the only company that is doing the Monsterverse truly justice when it comes to the action figures at this time. I know it's very difficult for me to say that, and it's disappointing to say that, because for the SH Monster Arts line, I have a very, very large investment in it. I've literally had the chance to talk to people. I'm not going to name names, but I've had a chance to talk to people behind the scenes. I've had the chance to really push for things to happen with the line over since the line began, and I've invested so much time, and it really does upset me whenever I have to say something negative or very critical about the line. And even making videos like this, it's a little disappointing. It's actually very disappointing is what I should say, that things like this come about. It's just not fun. Yes, literally, despite the length of the video, I forget some stuff, and I wanted to double down on some things. So we're going to go with B-roll and make this point. So I do know that a counterpoint that some like to bring up is that, it's this SH Monster Arts line, SH Figuarts, Tomato Tomato. They're completely different points in different lines and different properties. So that's really a bad faith argument. While that is true, there are different lines and different people who do work on them. That implication that the SH Monster Arts line is a unique OC donut steel and its own little fairy holds the implication that the people who do work on those products are people in Bandai's employ who simply are locked up in a basement, and they have no lives. They don't experience the world. They don't interact with other people, and they don't see what's going on in their profession and look at the advancements that are happening, despite the fact that advancements are happening in the line. So that is a bad faith argument. And furthermore, there is a professional world term in this hobby that is called a friendie, which is you have those who are in the profession bounce ideas off of each other, and they borrow ideas off of each other. You'd be surprised where that comes into play with products you probably already have on the shelf, and even where employees of other companies may or may not have actually contributed to products they didn't even get paid for from other companies. That's kind of off record. There's also the, again, argument that things take years for development. I'm aware of that. You're aware of that. It can take anywhere from 18 to 24 months to get a figure off the ground and running to the shelf. And again, the point that I make up here for Shinzen and working off the skeleton for Kong and getting the product out, the point that is being made here is that we had the final design for Kong in Godzilla vs. Kong. That was basically the same design used for Godzilla Kong the New Empire with just a few changes. So even if they made the changes to the figure based on Godzilla vs. Kong and changed the head sculpt to give Kong the awesome luscious beard that he had in the new movie, I think fans would find that to be acceptable, and was absolutely possible. Just to say it as it is in black and white, if Haya could get the license and get products out in 2022, and then make a brand new sculpt for release and solicitation starting in 24 leading into 25, that's enough evidence to make my point very clear there. We have a company that's smaller, with more limited supplies, against how many billion-dollar company? $13 billion, several trillion yen? Yeah. Now, when it comes to it, again, I want to encourage you to make your own decisions and I don't want you to just go with the flow and buy whatever the newest thing is, and you hear what somebody has to say, or somebody buys something and you think that amounts to a seal of approval, and yet you think that means. So for what I'm saying here is, if I buy Scar King and I post pictures of it, I post an unboxing, I post a video, you see somebody else post something about Scar King and you're like, oh, I saw he got it, so don't do that. Make up your mind on your own. Of course, seek out opinions from people who may be opinion leaders, subject matter experts, influencers, but make the decision on your own, okay? Make that on your own. And the way that I see things is, when you save money, you get ahead. And when you save money, you do better for yourself with your hobbies. Now, I'm going to touch on something here just as an example, where if you think about the way that you save money, especially around this time of the year, if this maybe changed your opinion, then what I think may be a good idea, this is just my opinion, and what I've done is maybe with some of the money that you save, if you're dropping some releases, you know, yeah, you can tuck that money away and that's fine, because this is for you, right? Gas is expensive, it's going up. Money is very, very tight for folks. You know, food, you got to put that on your plate. But if you've saved some money, there are other things that you can do with it. And whenever this time of the year comes around, I and my wife and myself, we really think about what is needed and who needs what. And we do donate, and that is what we always try to do, and this year's no different. So once again, like I did in my new Empire review, I want to show you, I don't want to tell you. Donating to a nonprofit is always something that can be done. So if you do save money, you're not going to drop $230 on Shimo. You know, maybe you're just going to save that money, or you're going to save the $110, $105, whatever it is on Scar King. You know, that money can go elsewhere if you're thinking that maybe you want to spend half of that on something else and wait for the Haya, or maybe you're going to get something that's more affordable and get something like. There are options that you can do if you want to save that money and do something else with it. Maybe you want to put it to a different use that can help others or other beings like animals. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is I can't believe I actually want to go on a sort of tangent here. I'm going to make it as very quick as possible. The reason that I'm mentioning this is I'm not looking to gain any sort of like brownie points or clout points. The reason that I'm mentioning this is I want to try to expose people to this idea that that is a possibility. You know, hey, I saved some money. You know, what can I do with it? Of course, you can save money. I'm trying to expose people to this idea because this is a possibility, and I want to prime people with that idea that that can be done. I'm not forcing anyone's hand. I'm not saying this is something that you have to do. It's just that sometimes people don't really think about that, and it may be a good idea to explore that if that's something that you want to do. I'm encouraging people solely on the option, if that's what you would like to do now that you've thought about it, to maybe go ahead and do it. I don't really care if somebody thinks that I'm maybe not being truthful here. It doesn't matter. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is apparently when I did this in my new Empire review, the SH Monsterverse new Empire review, it did make a few people upset. I don't know where. I was told that it did, but quite frankly, if that did, I'm not going to fall on the sword for that one. I'll die by the army of arrows, and I'll be happy to do it again. All right, and that's pretty much going to go ahead and wrap this long video up. I'm going to have to edit a lot down, but I really think that we need to put a cap on it. We really need to be realistic here with what we're making purchases of and understand what we're purchasing. There is still some efficacy to be had in consumer power and making the correct purchases for ourselves. What I mean by that truly is make informed purchases. And when we do that, we feel better about ourselves. We feel as if we're making the correct choices. We feel as if we're being self-validating, not some sort of post-purchase rationalization where we're trying to find the information which validates. When we're making the correct purchase for ourselves with all of the right information that we have available, that's when everything lines up and we really get to enjoy not only our purchases, but when it's hobby focused, like a washer or dryer is going to be different from a collectible, that's when everything feels the best. And I think we can all agree that we want that's going to be a real big collective. That's going to be a king's we here, right? The royal we, whatever. We want great collectibles. I love this hobby. You love this hobby. We all like feeling and being happy, and we love opening our figures and fiddling around with them. We just want this to be good, and good word of mouth, good sales, good memories, good memes, good communities. That's really what we want here. But when we do have this model of you must purchase this in order to get this, and that cost continues to climb where it's no longer accessible for the customer, and it's really going to price people out of the market, then it really does beg the question, is it going to be effective, and is it realistic for customers to begin with? Yes, these are going to be expensive, but again, when you bring it all down to what the intended business model is, it's a lot of money. We're talking nearly X plus gigantic series here. But when the model does work, it does work really, really well. Now, we do have competition here, and there are options that are available to the customer when it comes to the Monsterverse as a whole. It's not a matter of being a fanboy, and it's very healthy to express your frustrations. Always feeling happy about everything and anything is not really good, because when you have your blinders on, that's where you begin to miss issues, and that's where maybe you begin to fall in a false sense of security. I mean, if that was the case and you always just always said everything is healthy and hunky-dory. I mean, my own example, been with my wife for a total of 17 years now. I talked about toxic earlier. Honestly, what's toxic? What really is? Why do we keep talking about that? When it comes to the idea of, well, this conversation is toxic, this person is toxic, I really only see toxic ideas and conversation come from the people who want to begin the conversation of toxic. Obviously, I can't see every single conversation that's out there, but I will post videos, I will see discussions on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, where there's no mention of anything, and then someone will come swinging in with an RKO. Well, I can't wait until insert whatever here, and it turns toxic. Why? Just don't start it. There won't be any, okay? Janitors don't need to keep sweeping issues and saying that this is happening and this is a problem. Look, in the end, you matter. You should be happy with what you're buying, but what we really need to hammer in here is the cost of Kong is quite frankly way too damn high, and it needs to come back down to really be in favor of collectors here. If we're really going to be knocking $600, we're really knocking on its door in order to get the full SH Monster Arts Kong from Godzilla vs. Kong: The New Empire 2024. That's pretty absurd. That being said, this is part 1 of how Bandai failed the Monsterverse. I think it's just Tamashii Nations in this series, but realistically, even when we branch into movie monster series, they didn't do too great either. What you're seeing here is that some stuff's probably catching your eye. That's not an SH Monster Arts Kong head. What is that Tiamat? What's that Godzilla head? We're going to be exploring other parts where we're going to be looking at stuff that isn't SH Monster Arts, and we're also going to be highlighting some people in the community who you can maybe get stuff from that aren't official. Maybe we're going to be taking a look at some custom accessories, maybe some custom figures, and yours truly is going to be put on the chopping block. Oh yeah, there's more to come, and my Scar King figure is going to arrive in the US this Friday. This was originally intended to be posted before I got Godzilla Evolved, but life happened. Thank you so much for watching. I sincerely appreciate it. Again, this was a long video. I really hope that, this entire topic really was made very, very clear and was driven home that as a community, we can enjoy things and we can criticize things, and we really need to put in perspective that this is quite an expensive release when you really want to know the truth about it and you get down to the brass tacks. So this definitely needs to change, and there's a lot of implied questions of how they're going to do things moving forward that just don't make a lick of sense. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Love you all. Again, have a happy holiday season. I'll catch ya in the next video.